During the Vietnam War, the U.S. military used tunnel rats as a specialized unit tasked with entering and clearing the extensive network of tunnels used by the Viet Cong for shelter, supply routes, and hiding spots. The name rat may have referred to the vermin that infested the tunnels which the soldiers had to deal with during their operations. The term tunnel rat has since become synonymous with the brave and dedicated soldiers who performed this dangerous and vital task during the Vietnam War. There were no formal requirements to become a tunnel rat during the Vietnam War, but soldiers selected for this role had to meet specific criteria. They had to be physically fit and agile. They had to be able to crawl through narrow tunnels, often in the dark and without proper ventilation, while carrying their equipment and weapons. Tunnel rats had to be mentally strong and remain calm and focused in stressful situations. They had to navigate through a maze of passageways while avoiding traps, avoiding ambushes, and searching for enemy combatants and supplies. Tunnel rats were infantry and combat engineer division volunteers willing to take on this dangerous and challenging role. They had to be motivated by a sense of duty and a desire to serve their country. Soldiers selected for the tunnel rat role often had prior combat experience and received specialized training in using weapons and explosives. The soldiers assigned to this role were typically small in stature, around 5'5" or below, as the tunnels were often narrow and required soldiers to fit through tight spaces. Tunnel rats were not just American soldiers. Many were Australian, New Zealand, and South Vietnamese soldiers. The tunnel rats' primary role was to enter the tunnels and search for enemy soldiers, weapons, and supplies. They carried only the necessary equipment, including a standard 1911 pistol, bayonet, flashlight, explosives, and sometimes a sawed-off shotgun. Their goal was to move quickly through the tunnels, searching for any signs of the enemy and reporting back to their unit. Many tunnel rat soldiers grew to dislike using their pistol in the tunnels because of the bright muzzle flash from the large .45 caliber round. Many soldiers claimed to have lost hearing due to the noise. This issue was later addressed with a sound suppressor on the pistol. The tunnels had been constructed in the early parts of the war by the then called Viet Minh, who opposed French colonial forces at the time. The Viet Cong used the tunnel systems during the Vietnam War, and they became an extensive network of underground tunnels, bunkers, and caves stretching for miles throughout the country. The Viet Cong used the tunnels as hiding spots, supply rats, kitchens, living quarters, hospitals, training areas, storage areas, and communication centers. The tunnels were typically dug by hand, using primitive tools, and were often reinforced with wooden supports, bamboo, and other materials. If tunnels were not adequately reinforced, many of them would simply collapse. They were designed to be narrow and cramped, with low ceilings and tight spaces that made navigating through them difficult for U.S. soldiers. All of this allowed Viet Cong guerrilla soldiers to hide for months on end. The tunnel systems were often booby-trapped with explosives, tripwires, and other hazards, making them extremely dangerous for U.S. troops. The tunnels were also infested with rats, bats, insects, and other vermin, which added to the difficulty of navigating through them. In many cases, VC would use snakes and scorpions as living booby traps to kill tunnel rat soldiers. The tunnels even had anti-intruder features like a U-bend, which could quickly flood and drown a soldier navigating the tunnel. The tunnel rats also sometimes wore gas masks in fear of a possible poisonous attack, although many chose not to wear a mask because of its low visibility in dark passages. Today, the tunnels used by the Viet Cong have become popular tourist attractions, with some sections of the tunnels preserved and open to the public for exploration. Tunnel rats face significant physical and mental challenges in their line of work. They had to crawl through narrow, dark, and often flooded tunnels for hours, with little or no communication with their comrades outside. The tunnels were often, as mentioned, infested with rats, insects, and other vermin, and the air was thick with dust, mold, and other irritants. Despite the dangers and hardships, tunnel rats played a crucial role in the Vietnam War. They were responsible for gathering valuable intelligence, disrupting enemy supply lines and preventing the Viet Cong from using the tunnels to launch surprise attacks on U.S. troops. The soldiers who served as tunnel rats during the Vietnam War were never officially recognized or given any specific honors for their service. Like many Vietnam veterans, they faced significant challenges upon their return home, including a social and political backlash against the war and a lack of support from the government and society. Many tunnel rats struggled with physical and psychological injuries resulting from their service, including PTSD and exposure to Agent Orange. Some faced difficulty readjusting to civilian life, finding employment and accessing healthcare and other resources. In recent years, there have been increased recognition of the sacrifice and contributions made by Vietnam War veterans, including the tunnel rats. The U.S. government has established several programs and resources to support Vietnam veterans, including the VA healthcare system, disability compensation, and other benefits. There have been efforts by private organizations and individuals to honor the service of Vietnam veterans and their families, including memorials, ceremonies, and other forms of recognition. These efforts help to ensure that the legacy of the tunnel rats and other Vietnam War veterans is not forgotten, and that their service and sacrifice are appropriately acknowledged and appreciated. The legacy of the tunnel rats lives on today, with modern military units still using the tactics and techniques developed during the Vietnam War. During the Iraq War, U.S. soldiers faced a similar challenge of navigating through an extensive network of tunnels and underground bunkers used by insurgent forces to transport water. To address this challenge, the military trained soldiers in techniques similar to those used by tunnel rats in Vietnam, such as crawling through narrow tunnels and using explosives to clear them out. Additionally, other military units such as Special Forces and Marine Reconnaissance have adapted some of the same tactics used by tunnel rats during the Vietnam War, such as close quarters combat, stealthy movement, and using small arms and explosives. While the significant role of the tunnel rat may not exist in the modern military, the legacy of their bravery and dedication to duty lives on in the tactics and techniques used by soldiers today.